When Christopher Columbus first encountered the peoples of the New World, he was deeply moved. For their part, the Taino Indians of the Caribbean thought that Columbus and his sailors were gods who had come from heaven.
Europeans come to this continent, literally ethnically cleanse the indigenous population out of existence, kill them on a scale that has hardly been equaled by the millions, and refer to them as savages. That's an achievement.
For my people, the American Indians of the United States of America. In these United States of America, this great country of ours, we American Indians, we can be anything we want to be, except American Indians.
I mean, that's crazy, but maybe it's even crazier the fact that they brought smallpox as well and killed 90% of the Native Americans.
Do something that should have been done a long time ago. Make a formal apology.
And that is created by the laws of this nation.
The way we treated their children for so many years.
And condoned by its subsidiaries, the so-called tribal government. And designed for the Indian to fail, to be expendable, to be eliminated. I take you back in your history. After the American Indian hostiles had been subdued and forcibly confined to Indian reservations, it took approximately 30 years, one generation, for us to adjust and become economically viable.
Manifest destiny was a 19th century belief that the United States was destined by God to expand across North America, justifying westward expansion and the displacement of Native Americans. This belief was used to justify territorial acquisitions, including the annexation of Texas, the Mexican-American War, and the acquisition of Oregon Country, New Mexico, California, Alaska, and Hawaii.
It has been more than 150 years now since the great wagon trains headed west out of Missouri, hundreds deep and sometimes over a mile wide, carrying eager young immigrants to a new life in the American West.
Manifest destiny is rooted in American exceptionalism, the belief that the United States is unique and has a special role in the world. The ideology of manifest destiny led to forced removal of Native Americans from their lands as settlers moved westward, often resulting in conflict and displacement. Smallpox arrived in the Americas with the European explorers and new colonists, causing devastation, epidemics among the Native American populations who had no prior exposure or immunity. Between the years of 1550 and 1850, it has been estimated that no less than 3 million Amerindians from the West Indies as well as North, Central, and South America were killed. During the 1770s, smallpox eradicated at least 30% of the native population on the northwest coast of North America, including numerous members of Puget Sound tribes. The disease spread rapidly, leading to high mortality rates and significant population decline in various Native American communities. A smallpox epidemic in the 1830s nearly wiped out the Mandan tribe, with survivors joining the Arikara and Hidatsa tribes to form the 3 affiliated tribes. The disease also decimated other tribes such as the Blackfeet, Assiniboine, and the Crees. There are historically accounts suggesting that some European colonists may have intentionally spread smallpox through to the Native Americans, using contaminated blankets and other items as a form of biological warfare.
With people?
Yeah, it just came with people.
Interesting.
I mean, I don't think they really understood how to introduce diseases back then. Like idea that they thought that you could have it on a blanket. And
Yeah.
I don't think that's true. I think
interesting.
Let's find that out. I believe that myth has been busted. But
this example of biological warfare is referenced in 1763 as British General Geoffrey Amherst reportedly discussed giving smallpox-contaminated blankets to Native Americans to weaken their resistance during the French and Indian War. Captain Simeon Ecuyer wrote in a letter to Amherst, "I have sent the smallpox blankets as you ordered, and I hope they will have the desired effect." A statement that has been refuted as hearsay, but what were the intentions of governments as they enacted their policies of manifest destiny upon inhabited Native American land? The term genocide, made from the Greek word genos and the Latin cadere, was first coined by Ralph Lemkin, a Polish Jewish legal scholar, in his 1944 book Axis Rule in Occupied Europe. It originally means the destruction of a nation or an ethnic group. In 1946, the United Nations General Assembly affirmed genocide as a crime under international law in Resolution 96, which stated that genocide is a denial of the right of the existence of entire human groups, as homicide is the denial of the right to live of individual human beings. Such denial of the right of existence shocks the human conscience and is contrary to the moral law and spirit and aims of the United Nations. According to historical records and media reports, since its founding, the United States has systematically deprived Indians of their rights to life and basic political, economic, and cultural rights through killings, displacement, and forced assimilation in an attempt to physically and culturally eradicate this group. Even today, Indians still face a serious existential crisis. According to international law and its domestic law, what the United States did to the Indians covers all the acts of defined genocide. The American magazine Frontier Policy commented that the crimes against Native Americans are fully consistent with the definition of genocide under current international law. The profound sin of genocide is a historical stain that the United States can never clear, and the painful tragedy of Indians is a historical lesson that should never be forgotten. On July 4th, 1776, the United States of America was founded with the Declaration of Independence, which openly stated that he, the British King, has excited domestic insurgency amongst us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages, and in this document described the slandered Native Americans as the merciless Indian savages. The U.S. government and leaders treated Native Americans with a belief of white superiority and supremacy, set out to annihilate the Indians and attempted to eradicate the race through cultural genocide. During the American War of Independence, the Second War of Independence, and the Civil War, the U.S. leaders, eager to transform its plantation economy as an adjunct to European colonialism and to expand their territories, coveted the vast Indian lands and launched thousands of attacks on Indian tribes, slaughtered Indian chiefs, soldiers, and even civilians, and taking Indian lands for themselves.
What this Homestead Act was going to do was going to provide up to 160 acres of free land to Western settlers who would reside on it, improve it, and farm it in a way that would lead to greater agricultural prosperity for the country at large.
In 1862, the United States enacted the Homestead Act, which provided that every American citizen above the age of 21 with a mere registration fee of $10 could acquire no more than 160 acres of land in the West. Lured by the land, the white people swarmed into the Indian areas and started a massacre that resulted in the death of thousands of Indians. Leaders of the U.S. government at the time openly claimed that the skin of Indians could be peeled off to make tall boots, that Indians must be annihilated or driven to places that no one would go, that Indians had to be wiped out swiftly, and that only a dead Indian are good Indians. The American soldiers saw the slaughter of Indians as natural, even an honor, and would not rest until they were all killed. Similar hate rhetoric and atrocities abound and are well documented in many Native American extermination monographs. Since the colonists set foot in North America, they had systematically and extensively hunted American bison, cutting off the source of food and basic livelihood of the Indians, and causing their death from starvation in large numbers. Statistics reveal that since its independence in 1776, the U.S. government has launched over 1,500 attacks on Indian tribes, slaughtering the Indians, taking their lands, and committing countless crimes. In 1814, the U.S. government decreed that it would award $50 to $100 for each Indian skull surrendered. The American historian Frederick Turner acknowledged in The Significance of the Frontier in American History, released in 1893, that each frontier was won by a series of wars against the Indians. The California Gold Rush also brought the California Massacre. Peter Burnett, the first governor of California, proposed a war of extermination against Native Americans, triggering rising calls for the extermination of the Indians in the state. In California in the 1850s and 60s, an Indian skull or scalp was worth $5, while the average daily wage was 25 cents. From 1846 to 1873, the Indian population in California dropped to 30,000 from 150,000. Countless of Indians have died as a result of the atrocities. In 1811, American troops defeated the famous Indian war chief Tecumseh and his army in the Battle of Tippecanoe. They burnt the Indian capital, Prophetstown, and committed brutal massacres. From November 1813 to January 1814, the U.S. Army launched the Creek War against the Native Americans, also known as the Battle of Horseshoe Bend. On March 27, 1814, about 3,000 soldiers attacked the Creek Indians at Horseshoe Bend, Mississippi Territory. Over 800 Creek warriors were slaughtered in the fight, and as a result, the military strength of the Creeks was significantly weakened. Under the Treaty of Fort Jackson, signed on August 9th of the same year, the Creeks ceded more than 23 million acres of land to the United States federal government. On November 29, 1864, Pastor John Shivington massacred Indians at Sand Creek in southwestern Colorado due to the opposition of a few Indians to the signing of a land grant agreement. It is one of the most notorious massacres of Native Americans. Maria Montoya, a professor of history at New York University, said in an interview that Shivington's soldiers scalped women and children, beheaded them, and paraded them through the streets upon their return to Denver. In the 1850s, the United States repeatedly violated treaties with the Sioux, or Dakota people, by failing to provide food and supplies promised in exchange for land. As the Sioux suffered and starved, one indifferent federal official reportedly said, "Let them eat grass." Enraged, leader Little Crow led an uprising known as the Dakota War in 1862. Within 6 weeks, U.S. forces had captured 400 men and sentenced 303 of them to death. President Abraham Lincoln spared all but 38 of the condemned. The 38 were hanged on December 26, 1862, in the nation's largest ever judicial execution. In the 1880s, the government was intent on stamping out the ghost dance, a spiritual movement with members of 16 states and 24 tribes that aimed to revitalize native culture and resist assimilation. Government officials authorized the arrest and detention of any ghost dance participant, and in December 1890, beloved Lakota Chief Sitting Bull was killed during an arrest. When protests erupted in South Dakota, federal troops shot to death an estimated 300 Sioux men, women, and children in the Wounded Knee Massacre. As many as 15 million Native American people were estimated to have been living in North America when Christopher Columbus arrived in 1492. The so-called Indian Wars devastated Native American people. By the close of the 19th century, fewer than 238,000 Native Americans remained. Well, thank you guys for checking out this video. And if you like this video and videos like this, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and share this video with your friends. And as always, remember to get out there and explore. Thanks, guys.